Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 16 of VAR and Espresso. You join us today with another quarter-final confirmed after Paris Saint-Germain absolutely demolished Inter Miami and Bayern Munich managed to get past Flamengo. And they will face each other in the third quarter-final at the Club World Cup. Joining me today, as ever, is the very handsome and very adaptable Leo. How are you, Leo?
Hi, Daniel. How are you?
I am also handsome. Right, so let's go straight into it.
Yes, you are. But do you know who you look like? Do you know who you look like at? Sorry,
Every
Pep
football
Guardiola,
man.
of course.
Oh,
We
okay.
have Pep
Thank you.
Guardiola here.
Okay, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Yeah. He's a handsome man. Speaking of handsome, we'll go to handsome performances. So, despite the fact that the last 16 tie, we actually had 10 goals across the two matches, although none for Inter Miami. Should we start there with Paris Saint-Germain 4, Inter Miami 0? All 4 goals scored in the first half. The American side absolutely blown away. But it wasn't really a surprise. This was almost par for the course, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yesterday, we said in the episode that it wouldn't be a surprise if Paris beat Miami by 4, 5, 6 goals, and it's not a surprise that they did actually. The first half, especially, was a total demonstration, in my opinion, both collectively and individually. Mascherano qualified it as a bloodbath. Um, to recall, PSG had the ball on 73% of the time. They took 10 shots, created 6 great chances, and scored 4 goals in 45 minutes. So it emphasizes this idea of real domination. And then, and quite logically, they eased off in the second half after giving us a classic performance. We saw Miami created more chances. Lionel Messi was much more in evidence, and relays between players were found.
Yeah, and I suppose it's also the variety of PSG, right? So the 4 goals, the first one was from a set piece, the second one was from pressing,
Yeah.
the third one was across from the right in a defensive error, and the fourth goal was across from the left. So it shows that actually Paris Saint-Germain have so many strings to their bow, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's quite difficult to say that, for example, Vitinha has been better than 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤 because every players were really good yesterday. Even if in that case Vitinha was exceptional, as João Neves, who scored twice in the game. Everyone was really good. To be honest, Barcola was exceptional too. Defensively, it's difficult to say they had been really good because they didn't have a lot of work to do until the beginning of the second half. Uh, and Miami during this first half hadn't zero shots on target and zero shot at all. So, yeah, it was a complete domination.
Yeah. Do you think we have? Do you think it's quite a strange question to ask this? But Paris Saint-Germain obviously lost to Botafogo, but do you think they've actually had a quote unquote stern test so far? Because obviously Botafogo was quite a limited attack, but they scored from one of their few counterattacks, and Paris Saint-Germain wasted chances. So they faced Atletico Madrid when Atletico were just not awake. They lost to Botafogo. They beat Seattle Sounders, and they've just beaten Inter Miami. It's the hardest opponent being Atletico Madrid, who didn't really turn up. Do you think they've actually had a test, so to speak, yet? Because obviously, and despite the fact they lost to Botafogo.
Yeah, I think especially Botafogo and Atletico Madrid were tests. But when we talk about PSG, for example, in France, we used to say, oh, when they beat Liverpool, we said, yeah, but Liverpool weren't that good. When they beat Aston Villa, we said the same thing. I think their opponents are not quite good because PSG is really too good. Them. Against Botafogo, they lost that game. Botafogo deserved that win also because to resist to a team like that is not easy. But I think it were a good test. Now they will face Bayern Munich in the quarterfinal, so it will be on another stage of the competition, and it will be, I think, tougher than what they actually did face, and it will be quite interesting because Bayern Munich is one of the best team, not only in the world or in Europe, but also in the tournament since the beginning.
And of course, it'd be quite interesting to see the conflicting styles because obviously, essentially, apart from Atletico, Paris Saint-Germain have had 3 matches of attack versus defense, essentially. And in 2 of those games, they blew them away and could ease off. And of course, Botafogo, they just didn't score, despite the fact they created enough. Was there anything in particular in this match which you think was notable or distinct from the other games? For 𝐊𝐢𝐜𝐤, the set piece, for example, obviously across from the left-hand side, across the back post, and 𝐊𝐤𝐿𝐻, one of the shortest players on the pitch, steaming in for a header. Was there anything that surprised you from Paris Saint-Germain as like a particular performer that stood up in this game?
We can talk about Achraf Hakimi. I'm not surprised that he is that good at the moment, but we can talk about how good an athlete is because he started this season with the Olympic Games last year, playing 6 games with Morocco, and now he's approaching the 50 game mark, and he's still exceptional. He still runs with the same drive match after match, as he is not tired of doing everything, winning everything, because we know that winning can bring some tiredness, and it's quite impressive from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, again, I suppose this comes back to me asking about whether they've had a stern test, because obviously in Ligue 1 it's quite rare that Paris Saint-Germain have a stern test. It took until, what was it, the 32nd game of the season when they lost to Nice.
It was the 32nd, I think, or 31.
So they were going for an unbeaten season, and obviously had won the title by end of February. So obviously a lot more rotation possible in Ligue 1 as opposed to others potentially. But still, again, we're talking international commitments as well as year-long European commitments. It's astonishing, and it's not just him; it's Nuno Mendes at the other side as well.
Yeah. And what did you think about that Inter Miami side? Because we talk a lot about and logically about PSG, but what did you think about Miami?
Well, I mean, Inter Miami, I think, did exceptionally well to get out of the group. I think it's much to do with we mentioned this before. Group A was very balanced. We only had 2 victories out of 6, and the others were draws. So it's a very equal group. So there was an opportunity for someone to step up, and it just happened it was Inter Miami. So you earn your luck, right? So like the fact is they managed to hold on for 2 matches and squeeze draws, and they won the important one. And actually, they beat Porto. I seem to remember about a 10-minute spell. They weren't necessarily the better team, but there was an opportunity. They came out in the second half, turned the game around, and they managed to defend it. So they had quality in those moments. But stepping up in such a way, as we said, Porto, I think, had they played to their potential, they should have gone through. But in this, so like them going lower than their net rate, so to speak, allowed Inter Miami the opportunity. In this, it would have taken an almighty failure from Paris Saint-Germain. And it's not like Botafogo, who are adept at defending in a low block and counter-attacking. Inter Miami are, last season at least, were a relatively dominant team in the MLS. They're not a team that is used to having to defend and having to be compact, and they're all about attacking and creativity, which is great. You know, they are a very entertaining team to watch in the MLS. But we've seen in this season that they've come unstuck against Mexican sides in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, as well as also now coming unstuck against other MLS clubs. They've been caught a bit short this year domestically, although obviously still doing very well. But yeah, so a jump up in quality against Paris Saint-Germain was always going to cause problems, and it doesn't really seem that Inter Miami have a plan B or a second way of playing. So yeah, it was always likely that when they got to this stage of the tournament, they may sort of come up short a bit, I think. Do you agree?
Because I agree, because I was asking you that question because yesterday after the game I saw a lot of comments on socials that said, it was predictable that Inter Miami would lost to PSG because they are what foreigners thinks MLS is, with a lot of stars, a lot of it's shiny, it's quite American. In fact, when we think about American football, we can think about Inter Miami. But the fact is that they are the only of the 3 MLS teams to have qualified for the knockout stage. So it says something about their quality, in my opinion. And their group, even if it wasn't the hardest in the competition, it was really balanced.
Yeah, that's true. I'd probably say, like, looking at other CONCACAF sides, I think the only other side to get through is Monterrey, wasn't it? So Inter Miami, I suppose what I'm getting at is, I think the better example of a high quality MLS side would be Seattle Sounders. The reason I say this is because obviously they won the CONCACAF Champions Cup a couple of seasons ago, and are more used to playing sides from Mexico. And obviously that's seems to be a step up in quality, but also a different way of playing. And that's the great thing about, say, for us, like European football, right? It's very different playing domestic football to European football. You have to be able to adapt and show that. And Inter Miami hadn't had that experience. And obviously they've played some CONCACAF Champions Cup matches this season, but as I said, they've come up a bit short, and they've sort of shown themselves a bit almost not naive, but obviously inexperienced at that level. Whereas Seattle Sounders have actually been consistently good performers when they've gotten into that competition. So I think in some ways it's a shame that Seattle Sounders were put in such a difficult group with Botafogo, in Atletico Madrid and Paris Saint-Germain. They were always going to be bottom of that group. And as we said in discussions last week, the fact they finished on 0 points and bottom of the group, they were pretty good, actually. They were very much in the game against Botafogo. They were very much in the game against Atletico Madrid. They were not completely overwhelmed. But it's just a difference in quality. Had hypothetically, they'd been in different groups, so Inter Miami with Paris Saint-Germain and Atletico, and Seattle Sounders in Group A, I think Seattle Sounders would have gotten in that group possibly as winners, or like certainly. But I think they are a better all-round, adaptable, tactical side than Inter Miami. But we'll never know. It's just the luck of the draw, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about the Paris Saint-Germain Miami game?
No, I think we can go on and talk about the other game of the day.
And what a game it was! Flamengo to Bayern Munich 4. This was a very fun game. Did you watch it?
Yeah. As you say, it was a very enjoyable match to watch. It was a lot of pace, a lot of vice, great goals, because we will talk about it in a minute. But either it is Kane's goals or Gerson, it was exceptional. But to be honest, it took Flamengo approximately 20 minutes and 2 goals conceded, unfortunately for them, to adapt to Bayern's pressure. But when they did, we saw that they were able to respond in the best possible way. In fact, there were some good runs of the ball, some good movements, and the culmination of that was the superb goal of Justin. it was quite incredible to see him shoot that way against Neuer. And overall, the quality of some of the players, starting with Harry Kane, actually made all the differences, because Harry Kane's 2 goals were kind of extraordinary. The second one, especially because he never look at where the goal is. He just knows it because he's an elite striker.
Yeah, absolutely. Step by step. So the game started quite a pace. Both teams had a chance in the opening 5 minutes. Bayern Munich scored in the 6th minute from a corner, and 𝐊𝐤𝐤 headed into his own goal from about the 6-yard line. So it was a good set piece, trying to clear the ball, but obviously deflected into his own net. Just 3 minutes later, Harry Kane scored Bayern's second. He collected the ball. It was quite interesting because actually moments before then, Kane had dropped very deep to receive the ball because Flamengo were pressing and Bayern were a bit stuck. And so Kane dropped to collect the ball. He had 3 players around him and won a foul, I think you could say. It's very intelligent centre forward play of when to be hit and when to get knocked over.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 40 seconds later, he receives the ball 20 odd yards from goal on his left foot. And he's actually sort of stumbling as he hits it, but he still manages to get a shot away. Very powerful, takes a slight deflection, but then kisses the left-hand post as it goes in. And suddenly it's 10 minutes in and Bayern have a 2-goal lead. And from that point, I think we all thought that, well, that might be the game done. Did you feel the same that early on? Or were you surprised at all?
I was kind of surprised because we predicted yesterday that the game were going to be a lot more tougher for Bayern Munich. And after that 20 minutes I talked about, it was. But when they scored twice it was 11th minute, I think, or 12th, it was kind of a surprise to see Flamengo deroute like that.
Yeah, but credit to Flamengo, whether this was the players on the pitch or the manager's tactical choices, but they seemed to work Bayern out quite quickly. So they started moving the balls down the flanks fairly quickly after the second goal, and actually for the next sort of 20 minutes they put a lot of pressure on Bayern. In the 15th minute, they had a great chance of 6 yards, which Neuer saved point blank. A terrific save, actually. A Neuer of old actually being able to press an attacker within seconds. But they kept the pressure on, and the pressure told in the 33rd minute when Flamengo worked it down the left. Cross came into the box, and it was just worked on by, what's his name? 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤. So the cross was coming in. He sort of just helped it on its way, and Jason thundered it in from just inside in the box. And it was very central, wasn't it, the shot? It actually went straight over Neuer, but such was the power, he had no choice. He had no chance.
And we saw that even the image of Neuer trying to do like that, it was quite...
it was already...
It was like in an... Yeah, it was like in anime mangas. When you see, when you see a super strike and the goalkeeper cannot stop it because it was too powerful.
And at that point, it was game on, and Flamengo were looking dangerous. But Bayern did get a 3rd goal before half-time. And this was a strange goal, wasn't it? Because it comes to Goretzka nearly 25 yards out. He has 3 defenders between him and the goal.
Yeah.
But it's the strange thing, because as he lines up to shoot, all of them step to their left, including the goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper takes a step to his left. All 3 defenders step to the left. And there's this clear path into the bottom corner of the other side. So obviously it's a good strike, but it's not perfectly in the corner. And yet the keeper doesn't dive because he's unsighted and wrong-footed. It was a strange one, wasn't it?
And it was a terrible defending because when he controlled the ball, he had all the time he wanted to adjust his kick. And I think the big difference, what made the difference between those two teams were the quality of the goalkeepers, because we saw that Neuer once again proved decisive on occasions that could have allowed Flamengo to make their point in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so shots on target, Bayern only had 4, Flamengo had 3. So there was only one shot
Yeah.
in the game that was saved, and that was the one we mentioned already with Neuer. But it's also things like being able to play out from the back. Neuer has for such a long time been one of the world's best
Yeah.
at having the ball at his feet and working it away and knowing when to clear it as well, as opposed to just playing into danger.
Yeah.
So then we got the second half. Again, Flamengo started really well, and they won a penalty in the 55th minute. Slightly disappointing from Michael Elise, who's been really good. Had an excellent season at Bayern last year, has had a good tournament. But the ball's on the right for Flamengo, and he's a bit lazy with his running out. And so when the cross comes in, he's a good sort of 5. Pardon me.
Michael Olise defended like a forward. Like that.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh,
That's
no
my
problem.
dog. By the way, in case I was wondering, that's my dog right there. Yes, so he's about 10 yards away. He doesn't really, he kind of lazily runs forward and jumps, and his arm is clearly out. Handball, and Jorginho scores Flamengo's second after 55 minutes. Classic Jorginho penalty as well. Sort of the keeper. It didn't seem like Neuer moved. It looked like he kept on his feet, and yet somehow Jorginho still managed to send him the wrong way.
Yeah, but do you know that in the second half, Flamengo had more concrete chances to score than Bayern? It says a lot of about this game, and because I know you like stats, when they scored their fourth goal, Bayern, they had only 3 shots on target, so it was quite efficient. It was quite an efficient performance.
Actually, looking at other stats, like for example, the possession, Flamengo 50.7, so very even for both sides.
Yeah.
Touches in the opposition box, Bayern only had 24. That's not that many, and Flamengo had 16. So it was a very, very even game. But it goes back to quality, right? So goes to Bayern's fourth goal in the 73rd minute. Musiala had been substituted on moments before. He tries to create something off the left wing, and it almost comes off. But then the Flamengo number 7, I forget his name, tried to dribble the ball away and ran straight into 𝐊𝐤𝐤, which seemed again a bit naive. You're only 1 goal down; you don't need to force it with 20 minutes left. Essentially, 𝐊𝐤𝐤 intercepts and plays like quite a nice disguised pass into the path of Kane, who is just outside the penalty area. And as you said, he doesn't look really. The ball is out of his feet, and he shoots with his right foot this time, and again perfectly in the corner. It is remarkable the difference of having an elite striker in regards to accuracy of shot and speed of shot as well.
Yeah, and look at the position of his body when he shoots. It's quite unusual to see someone, because he looks at the ground. As I said, he never look at the opponent goalkeeper or just goal. He just knows it's his instinct that tells him how and where to shoot. 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤 has proven for many years that he's one of the elite strikers in the world. Maybe for some, and I can hear that the best in the world at the moment, because he's so complete. He can shoot from everywhere. He can strike with his left foot, as we saw, with his right foot. He can become a playmaker in the team. He can do a lot of things. He can assist, score headers. He's quite complete for a striker.
It is incredible. Something else as well, just before the end, Leroy Sané had a chance in the 7th minute of stoppage time. He was sent through 1-on-1, and he hit it straight at the goalkeeper. Now, the reason I bring this up is because there were 2 of these in the match against Benfica, almost identical. Sané sent through on goal. He enters the penalty area and he shoots straight at the goalkeeper. So you do. It is this incredible thing that his XG is very, very high, and yet he hasn't scored.
Yeah.
And I suppose, because obviously he's moving to Galatasaray on a free transfer in just a few weeks. And there was obviously, whenever a player like him is released, obviously the wages he was demanded is a is a thing. But unlike, say, Alphonse Davies or Joshua Kimmich, where Bayern did everything to keep them, and obviously they're going to have significant wages now. They didn't do the same with Leroy Sané. And I suppose at the time, people wonder like, oh, I wonder why. And then you see things like that, and it's like, yeah, he isn't world class. He doesn't. So if he's asking for world class wages, there's not that evidence of, oh yeah, you've earned them, you deserve them. It's a case of, well, no, actually, perhaps there are better options in that position.
I totally agree. We said last week that he is a good player, but he has never reached the expectations we made upon him. He's quite lazy on the pitch. Michael Olise is lazy on the pitch, but not in the same way. He's quite more efficient. He's more spectacular. He does everything Leroy Sané should do to keep his place in Bayern squad.
Yeah, it's interesting that obviously because he was previously at Manchester City, and whenever a player is sold by Guardiola, there's that usual thing of like, I wonder what the reason is. Sometimes it's just not a fit. But there are other. Sometimes there's a case of like, perhaps it's not a tactical fit, perhaps it's not a personality fit. But also you can see the reasons why in regards to like work rate. Yeah. So in the third quarterfinal at the Club World Cup, we'll have Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern Munich. Any initial instincts about who will go through that one?
I still think Paris is going to go through because they have the best team in the tournament if they want to play. Yesterday they showed against Inter Miami that if they did the same second half than their first, it would have ended in I think 7-8-0, and it was no debate about the goal between those two teams. So I think it will be tired logically, but that Paris will eliminate Bayern. And you, what do you think?
You know what? I think in an alternate universe, I think Bayern are the sort of team that can hurt Paris Saint-Germain. They offer something different tactically. For example, we're talking about Harry Kane, right? So the ability to have a player, if you need them, can act as a target man. So therefore, Paris Saint-Germain's press can be nullified by hitting it long to a player such as Harry Kane, who is very good at holding up the ball and bringing others into play. Likewise, his ability to drop deep, work as an extra playmaker, and play passes through for players such as 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤 or whoever's playing on the left to attack down Paris Saint-Germain's wings, I think is also, it's not a weakness as such because 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤 and Menge are so good at getting back, but there is that counter-attack option, right? And I think in that context, Bayern can really cause problems for Paris Saint-Germain, especially, like I say, the ability to play over Paris Saint-Germain's press is a big thing. However, you then consider Bayern Munich's central defensive partnership, 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤 and Jonathan Tah, two very good central defenders, but Tah's only just been signed. You need time to develop a central defensive partnership. But also what we saw against Flamengo was a lot of gaps down the flank in Munich, a lot. So Konrad 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤, who is not a natural fullback, he's more of a sort of defensive midfielder. Excellent energy, really good pace. But you did see that quite often he popped up just say on the edge of the penalty area. Now that might well be just been a tactic for this particular game. And company may want to sort of keep him more defensively. But it does seem that there are gaps either side of the central defenders for Munich. Now Tah and 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤 have the physicality and the pace to recover, right? So in those contexts, you'd say if they've been playing together for 6 months, it'd be more of a case of, oh yeah, you can play higher and you have the pace to sort of recover and also, pick up the flanks. But I think it might be too early doors. I think it might be too early for them to really play with such conviction and trust in each other. So yeah, I just think Paris Saint-Germain will find the gaps. But I think it'll be a really interesting game. Like I say, I think it'd be interesting to see if Company adjusts the fullbacks to sort of nullify that as well. Because, like I say, I think the best way to go is almost play it long to Kane, with Musiala maybe dropping into the centre, maybe even Elise coming more central straight off.
Yeah,
And
it
then
will
suddenly,
be quite interesting.
yeah. But yeah, my instinct says Paris Saint-Germain are a more well-oiled machine at this point in time.
Yeah, I see what I can see your point.
Look at the matches tomorrow. Sorry, today, of course.
Yeah,
My
we have
apologies.
Inter Fluminense.
Against 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤. The first one,
Yeah.
Inter Fluminense, I think it's going to be the more balanced game, I think, in all probability. I mean, let's just knock it off. We think Manchester City are going to destroy 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤, right?
Yeah, that's the reason why they put this game at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning here, because it's quite unbalanced. I think Manchester City will just crush 𝐊𝐤𝐼. Maybe not in the same proportion as PSG did with Miami, and I don't think so. But I think they are quite superior to 𝐊𝐼. They are the best team in that competition. Since from what they have shown since the beginning, because just they are perfect 9-on-9 in the group stage. They absolutely crushed Juventus in their last game. Even if PSG, we praised them a lot, I think they were less less good in some aspects of the game, and Manchester City showed that in a weaker group that they can play a really nice way. So I think it will be 3-0 or maybe 4-1, but three goals between the two teams.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think 𝐊𝐤𝐼, so much of the good stuff comes from Ruben Neves as the playmaking defensive midfielder. I just think that Manchester City, their press has worked again. They finished the season really well, despite having a very difficult season before them, as you say. And then they see the group stage, they perfected it.
Yeah,
𝐊𝐤𝐼 are able to sit back. I mean, we saw them against Real Madrid, and they were impressive against Real Madrid. But also, that was the first game of the tournament, right? It's slightly different. It's Real Madrid having lots of new players, and 𝐊𝐤𝐼 sort of the levels being more balanced because you're both going in cold. But this is different. This is now Manchester City with a bit of momentum, and 𝐊𝐤𝐼. You do question how they're going to do it. Now, it depends if Mitrovic is fit. I don't think he is.
I don't think. Yeah, but he didn't play in the group stage, so I don't think it's a good idea for Inzaghi to drop him on a game like that.
Like the Bayern Paris Saint-Germain thing, right? I would say if Mitrovic with the ability to play it long is helpful, but you're asking a lot of Marcos Leonardo, who's not a natural hold-up striker. He's more running in behind, cutting in off the left. I just can't see 𝐊𝐤𝐼 causing that many problems. But they do have some really good defensive players, so it might actually be harder than we're giving them credit for. Like, it might be that Manchester City, it takes a while for them to score, and there's always that risk of a counter-attack, because there are still gaps for Manchester City, despite nailing the group stage. The fact is they did look defensively fragile against Juventus. Juventus offered a lot. So if you get what's his name, 𝐊𝐤𝐼𝐼 off the left, if you can get him running down the left, that is a possibility. But then I think what you're probably going to have is almost Marcos Leonardo and 𝐊𝐤𝐼𝐼 sort of almost working as split strikers, right? So play it down the flanks.
It will be a low block and counter attacks. Yeah.
But then also that means that you sort of kind of, if you then play Ruben Neves, it kind of becomes pointless because he's not going to be on the ball. You might as well have someone more physical. But anyway, yes. So, like I said, I think I'm not giving 𝐊𝐤𝐼 enough credit defensively. I think Manchester City might struggle at first to break them down, but it's one of those things where if they get a goal, say in the opening 30 minutes, you just don't see a way back for 𝐊𝐤𝐼. So very much so. Manchester City win. Inter Fluminense is a more interesting one, more a difficult one to to predict.
Yeah.
What's your instinct for this one?
It's quite difficult because I liked what I saw from 𝐊𝐤𝐤's Inter so far. Um, they were good in the group stage, and they weren't rewarded from what they did by goals and by victory. But yeah, in my opinion, they will beat Fluminense, but it will not be an easy task. Fluminense has shown that they have a good team. They deserve to be here. There are good players there, very good players. John Arias, notably, who is maybe, I think, is one of the man of the tournament so far. They have experience. It will be interesting to see how they plan to play against Inter and their left wings, their wings back, sorry, because they used to play in 4-2-3-1 system, and now they will face a very attacking side with 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐤 going next to Martinez, and I think it will be Esposito on the front line with Dumfries really attacking, Di Marco on the left, but I think he will stay more defensive than Dumfries, and it will be quite interesting. And the capacity for Fluminense to hold the ball in certain areas, like the midfield, because Nonato and Martinelli will have a great role, a great important role in doing so. And the capacity also to Thiago Silva at 40 to continue to defend the way he did against in the group phase, and doing it against one of the best striker in the world, Lautaro Martinez.
One of the best in the world. We're joined by Pedro. How are you?
Oh, I'm pretty cool. Yesterday I drove from Lisbon to Faro in Algarve in the south of the country. I have a summer house just close to the Spanish border, just 1 hour away from Seville. So just to tell you, Leo, that I will be the next 2 weeks in the near from the beach. I don't know if one of you guys wants to come to the beach. Just feel welcome.
I would like. I promise you, I would like.
I have space for you guys, room for you guys, and also have good internet connections for the show.
That's cool.
Saying that I'm cool, and it's a pleasure to join with you guys.
Thanks, Pedro.
We were just predicting today's games, Inter, Fluminense, and Manchester City, 𝐊𝐤𝐤𝐿. Is there anything you would like to say about yesterday's results or the matches going on today? Any thoughts? Any opinions?
Just about yesterday, as I told before, in this kind of competition, when we reach the round of 16, usually the strongest go forward. In the other rounds, can happen a surprise because there's lots of emotion, emotions involved, and sometimes some teams just make the games for their lives, and can be a flop. But in this round, I don't see any flop, which I see is the favorite to win, at least by a margin of 2 goals, as it happened yesterday.
So something I was going to bring up before we finished, because obviously the first quarterfinal, Palmeiras against Chelsea, very exciting. The second quarterfinal will be the winners of the 2 matches today. We're assuming it'll be Inter Manchester City. The third quarterfinal, Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, and then the fourth will be either Borussia Dortmund and Monterrey or Real Madrid and Juventus. Now, Leo, I'm not sure if you remember me saying this, but in our first or second broadcast together, I said one of my real concerns about the tournament was once we got to the quarterfinal stage, I predicted we would have one Brazilian team left and the rest were going to be European.
Yeah.
And not that I'm perfectly right. Today's results might go differently. But if you look at Dortmund, Monterrey, Madrid, Juventus, that's 3 European teams and Monterrey. And obviously Monterrey are the big underdogs against Borussia Dortmund. So if the results go as we think they will today, chances are we'll have 7 European quarterfinalists and 1 Brazilian team.
Yeah.
Do you think, even though it's the quarterfinals, do you think then people will actually get less interested because it's just another European competition after that?
Yeah, it's Champions League 2.0. It will be interesting to the fact that this Club World Cup is so interesting for some people is that we can discover new teams, discover new cultures through the fans, discover new players. Now we know what, for example, PSG, Bayern, Manchester City have to offer to us. So yeah, it will be more interesting, even if watching a game between those great teams is always a good thing to do. But it's kind of you remember when they wanted to implant the Super League. It's quite the same thing now. It's this competition is kind of Super League, but a world one with the best teams in the world, as FIFA said. So yeah, it's quite annoying to see all these European teams here.
Yeah, and the other thing is, it's hard to argue that it's the elite of European teams either. I mean, obviously we've seen that with a couple of teams that finished second in their league or so.
Yeah,
But for the fact is, we don't have the champions of England, we don't have the champions of Italy, we don't have the champions of Portugal. So it's the strange thing of course, this is based on European competition, but also we did have Red Bull Salzburg, and yet you don't have the English Premier League champions. You do have Juventus, and yet you don't have Napoli, who have won 2 league titles since
Yeah.
Juventus last won it. So you can't even say it's the best Italian side, which is strange.
I think the real problem is about the branding of the competition, because when FIFA say yeah, it's the competition where the biggest teams in the world are, it's not really true, by the way, because yeah, Barcelona is not here, Liverpool isn't, Napoli,
The Spanish champions.
yeah,
There.
the Spanish champion, yeah. Napoli, and yeah, it's. I would have preferred to have kind of a Cup of Cup Champions format like it was years ago, with the real best teams in their countries. Or I think it would have been more interesting to see. And some teams won the cups in their own country, and they are not champion or considered as the best teams. So it could have permitted us to discover teams and players also.
Right. Yes. So can I just get confirmation from both of you that you think it will be Manchester City Inter from today?
Pedro, go on.
The game of Manchester City, it's the game with Fluminense, right?
No, Manchester
Al
City
Hilal.
Al Hilal.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I think Manchester City will win this match very easily because they are a much more stronger team. I follow the Saudi Arabia league because there's lots of Portuguese players and Portuguese coaches there. I also know that Al Ahly in the last 10 years won the national championship more than 50% of the time. I know they are a good team. They have really good players. But I think City will show up, will play their game, and win. As I said before, I think they in this kind of situation the teams win at least by a margin of 2 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're all in agreement, aren't we? We think Manchester City with a relatively easy win and Inter with a hard fought but deserved victory.
Yeah.
I think the big thing about Inter as well, the fact that, I mean, same thing with Harry Kane, right? Lautaro Martinez is one of the world's best strikers, but he's not necessarily unplayable, but he does offer a lot. He is able to run in behind. He is able to come short. He has more than one trick.
Yeah, and he's a leader from what he is. His charisma, his performances, and everything make him a really strong leader in that team.
Right. Well, in that case, is there anything else that you would like to bring up that's happened in the last day or so? Obviously, I wasn't here for the European Under-21s final with England beating Germany.
Can I talk about the topic, please?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw the Benfica game, and young players must be careful because Prestiana was so childish. My God. When it was the penalty situation that the VAR confirmed, he jumped to the referee yelling. It was a lucky he didn't get a yellow card there. After that, in the last seconds of regulation, he tackled an opponent in the midfield. It's completely no sense. In the beginning of the extra time, in the box of the opponent, he hit a player in the attacking and got second yellow in the red card and put Benfica out of the game completely. The same happened in the final of the Under-21 championship when Scott was not in condition. He could be replaced. He said to the staff he could at least wait to the halftime, but it was not in condition. So what he did, the German opponent passed him. He tackled. He got excused yellow card. It was from that free kick. It was a corner, and from the corner it was the German in goal. And instead of England go to the halftime with 2 goals advantage, it was 2-1, just 1 goal different, and the game completely changed. It was a completely different situation.
Yeah.
Do you think that these young players could have another? And I don't know. I don't know if you call how to say some kind of advices or some kind, not advices but coaching, the real coaching for do not put their teams in a difficult situation with actions they just doesn't make any sense.
Well, I think context is important in this one. So, for example, Benfica playing in a knockout round of the Club World Cup is very different to an Under-21 tournament. The Under-21 tournament, of course, is aimed for developing young players. So there is going to be inexperience, there's going to be naivety, there's going to be that kind of thing. I suppose the only disappointing thing is Alex Scott is more experienced. He does have Premier League, plenty of Premier League appearances for Bournemouth under his belt. But also, it is a final. You see this all the time when players get injured in important games. They are so determined to press on, and it might not be in the best interest. And it's not necessarily age. It's like what was the match we saw I think it might be 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤 or Ulsan or something like that. There was a match where someone was substituted. Actually, you know what? I'm wrong. I think it was Mamelodi Sundowns. I think it was their final game. Just at the end of the first half, someone had to go off, and they just refused. And they were so angry and genuinely like screaming at the physios as if it's the physiotherapist's fault to say, no, you need to go off for a concussion.
It happened in the Premier League a few years ago. I can't remember who.
Well, I do remember. So a really high-profile one was when Kepa was in goal for Chelsea in the final of the League Cup.
Yeah,
and Kepa refused to be substituted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But that's just petulance. That's a refusal of like your coach's. It undermines the coach at that point. It's actually incredibly bad. But I think in these contexts, it's slightly different. The Benfica one, Pedro. I have to agree with you. I think there was a lot of naivety shown there and a lot of experience and it went bad very quickly. Whereas the Under-21s, I think you expect it. It's the Under-21s. The whole point of these kind of tournaments is to teach them about moments like this, about how to play matches like this. Leo, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, you are talking about the fact that the European Championship is there to teach them, and it's quite funny to see, for example, in England, every players play in for the most of them they play in the Premier League in big clubs, so it's quite funny, I think, to see this player act like that when they are in such a structural organization during the year.
There's something. The one last thing I would like to bring up before we finish, because there were a couple of other results yesterday in other competitions. It's the CONCACAF Gold Cup.
Yeah.
So it was the quarterfinals. Panama won, Honduras won, with Honduras winning on penalties. So they're through to a semi-final. That's huge for Honduras. Mexico beat Saudi Arabia 2-0. Saudi Arabia were invited to the tournament, as they have been quite a lot for other tournaments. What the shock of the tournament so far, maybe Canada won,
Canada, yeah.
Guatemala won, and Guatemala won on penalties. So Canada are out at the quarterfinal stage, which is not great. But also USA 2, Costa Rica 2, but the US won on penalties. So so 3 penalty shootouts in those 3 quarterfinals, and the semifinals will be Honduras versus Mexico and Guatemala against the USA. Now, the reason I bring this up. So one of the pieces I'm going to be writing in the coming weeks, I will be talking about the build-up. It's 12 months until the FIFA World Cup, and we have 3 host nations in Canada, Mexico, and the US. And I wanted to talk about basically the state of the US currently, because for the last 18 months, their form has been really, really bad. And what we saw at the Club World Cup, what I'm worried about is, because obviously with certain MLS clubs being involved, there's more interest, but the second American teams are eliminated, you lose sort of the local interest. With most international tournaments, and this happens at World Cups, right? The longer a host nation stays in the tournament, the more that the local population are interested.
Yeah.
And fortunately, what we've seen is actually ever since 1994 beyond, right? So 98, France ended up winning the tournament. 2002, in South Korea and Japan, South Korea got to the semi-finals. Did they? Was it no, quarterfinals? But like that was really exciting. 2006, Germany got to the semi-finals. 2010, South Africa, even though they only got to the knockout stage, Ghana got to the quarterfinals. So there was still African interest there. Obviously, 2014, Brazil semi-final, although that went badly. 2018, Russia got to the quarterfinals and actually had a couple of huge results on the way. So you have this interest along the way. Now, obviously, 2022 with Qatar, not so much, but there was backing for the Saudi team. It's worrying that this tournament, sorry, there's a big intro. This tournament, we have 3 hosts and 2 of them seem to be really out of form. Now, Canada are ranked 30th in the world, and the USA are 16th. But I just looked, in the last 18 months, the USA have played 22 matches. Guess how many they've won?
I would say 13. We can't hear you, Daniel. We didn't really. No problem.
How about now? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I must have covered my mic. So yes, in 22 matches in the last 18 months, the US have won 11, exactly 50%. But the thing is, those teams they've beaten Jamaica 3 times, Bolivia, Panama, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, and then 2 victories against they've beaten 1 team in the top 20 of the world. That's Mexico, beat them once. And the other team they beat was Saudi Arabia, and they are ranked 58th. So like the teams they've beaten have been way below their standard.
Yeah.
So out of the 22 matches, they've won 11. Guess how many they've lost?
11.
9. And the matches they've lost they've lost to Panama twice, they've lost to Canada twice, they lost to Mexico, they lost to Slovenia in a friendly, that they're 46th in the world, they lost to Uruguay, they lost to Turkey, and they've just been thrashed 4-0 at home to Switzerland. Now, the reason I bring that up is because Turkey are 22nd in the world, Switzerland are 20th, so these are teams relatively close to them in the FIFA World Rankings, and yet they destroyed the US in the US. So my worry is, where do you think, with 12 months to go to the FIFA World Cup, in regards to the host nations? Because I have a real concern that we'll lose Canada and the US.
I have
because the group
big
stage is different now.
Yeah, I have big expectations for Canada because they have a rising generation. They have really good players. In the US, it's quite strange because they have some good players. We all know Pulisic, Malik Tillman. They have players playing in great clubs. I can think about Carter's Vickers, who play at Celtic, Anthony Robinson at Fulham.
Crystal Palace.
Yeah. Who else? Matt Turner, but who is not a starting player at Nottingham, but he will maybe soon be at Lyon. They got good players, in fact. Weston McKennie. We can draw a list. But
the starting 11 for the US are fantastic, actually.
Yeah, but they can't. It seems difficult for them to play. Is Mauricio Pochettino the good trainer for them? I don't know, because to be honest, I never watch US games. But it's quite strange, and it's true that the competition they are facing in North America or Central America with Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras I don't think it help them to raise their level, because I don't want to disrespect any of these teams, but it's the second or third tier of world football, so it's complicated to progress while playing against this kind of teams. But they lost a lot of games, so
I suppose in build-up to World Cup they were also invited to the Copa America. Okay, so they came third in their group because they. Who did they lose to? I've got it written down somewhere. Oh yeah, they beat Bolivia 2-0, great, and then they lost to Panama 2-1, and then they lost to Uruguay 1-0. Uruguay is less surprising. Uruguay are a decent team, but still, that's a new competition they've not been involved with. The Copa America, invited there specifically, and then they're out of the group stage. So it's it seems that whenever they face opposition of their own level, they lose. Like I say, they lost. I mean, the friendlies, and they didn't have their entire first 11, but they lost to Turkey. They lost badly against Switzerland. Like I say, they have lost to Canada twice in the last 18 months. They've lost to Mexico, although they've also beaten Mexico. So it does seem that whenever they have to step up, it doesn't seem to go well. Pedro, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I'm not following. But I have a lots of Kepler friends in the United States and Canada, and in the qualifying for the last World Cup, Canada beat it in Canada, the United States, because both teams were in the same group, and Canada was qualified to the World Cup in front of the United States. The soccer is growing. Soccer is growing in North America very quickly, and I'm sure their national leagues also will improve in the next couple of years, because they have millions of kids. Now they see national teams playing the World Cup. Now they see this tournaments in the clubs return in North America and other competitions. They are involved. The American League, the Canadian League. So more and more kids.
Oh, so you're breaking up.
Oh,
hold up, Pedro. Wait,
I don't
pause.
think you can hear us. Yeah. Okay, but
I suppose, and the other reason I bring it up, because obviously this is the quarterfinal of the Gold Cup, right? But USA have just beaten Costa Rica on penalties. They're facing Guatemala in the semi-final. So even if US beat Guatemala and get to the final, they're in the final of the Gold Cup. But in getting there, they've not had to face anybody outside of the top 30 in the world. You know what I mean? So like it's almost a procession, and yet they've made hard work of it. They won their group, to be fair, although they only beat Haiti 2-1. They only really squeezed that. Costa Rica having to beat them on penalties. They're going to face Guatemala next. and then the final will probably be Mexico. It's the US are in a funny position. I have, as going back on what Pedro was saying about Canada and what you were saying, Leo, right? Canada seem to be on the up. They're not quite consistent, but they are building. They have some individual world-class players. The US have a great starting 11, but it just doesn't seem something's not right. And part of the thing I wanted to bring up, because I wonder if it is essentially with 12 months ago, I thought there might be a possibility of changing the manager now, and accept that Mauricio Pochettino might not be the right manager going into a World Cup, because in the last 18 months, losing 9 matches against the teams that you've lost to is not really acceptable for a team like the US, or like what the US want to be.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, it's a real worry, and I just hope it doesn't. I hope they fix it, because if the same thing's happening in 12 months' time, I can foresee Mexico and Canada getting to the round of 16, but not the US. But then all of the matches are in the US after that.
Yeah, but I'm not really just concerning the fans. To finish my thoughts, I'm not really concerned about the atmosphere, because we know that, and the Club World Cup has shown that Brazilian supporters, Argentinian supporters, and then because there will be also maybe Peruvians, Venezuelans, a lot of this country. They will come to US for the World Cup, and for Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, there are a lot of chances that they go through to the quarter, semi, even the final, maybe. So yeah, the atmosphere, I don't think it will be an issue. But if we are talking about especially what happened on the field, yeah, it's you can have questions to ask about that.
Well, I think this also goes into the bigger point of I think Gianni Infantino has spoken about how he wants soccer to be the biggest sport in the US, or certainly the top 3. And think about say, like, go back to the World Cup 2010, right? The US got to the quarterfinal, I think it was, which was fantastic, and interest in soccer in the US was bigger and more, and also the MLS was growing and getting more competitive, and there are more and more MLS teams now, which is great. There's even talk about, I know the league beneath MLS has introduced promotion relegation.
Yeah, the USL.
Yeah, which is again always really, really good. But there seems to be this opportunity that might be missed. So obviously we had last year the Copa America, the US being involved with that for the first time. That was a chance to sort of have more of grab more attention of the US public, and it fell flat. There's now the Club World Cup. Football is happening in America, and some Americans are going to watch it. As we've seen, it's not universal, but there is interest. But with American teams out, it's now more of sort of teams that they've heard of. Maybe they go and watch. But again, there's like that lack of American interest might mean fewer Americans are watching. And then next year you have the World Cup itself, the biggest sporting event in the world. And my worry is if the US then drop out early, the US interest sort of gets less. So regardless of like all worldwide fans, the host nation are not as interested once the host nation's out. And so it seems like in the space of 2024, 2025, 2026, the US is building towards this thing of like, right, this is a nation that should be interested in soccer, football. We've had everything here, and it feels like it might be a missed opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I understand your point.
We should get Sean on one of these days. Maybe his thoughts. Right, before we go, Pedro, anything else you would like to talk about or mention?
Yes, just a word of acknowledgement to Jonathan Rowe, the player from Marseille, who gave the victory goal. Brilliant finish, brilliant move. For me, it was the icing on the top of the cake for England to win.
And it was his first touch.
Yeah, in the first touch, yes, he the first touch in the ball. In to say that today, I agreed with every single analysis that Daniel made. Completely, totally agree.
Thank you. Also, word on say talk about the under-21 final. Charlie Cresswell obviously now plays for Toulouse. I think there was one shot he blocked in the 95th minute. That led to the Germany hitting the bar from it. But again, sort of another English player based in France doing well. Right, if that's everything today, thank you so much, Leo. Thank you so much, Pedro.
Thanks, Pedro.
Also,
thanks,
thank
Daniel.
you, everybody, for joining in and watching. Make sure you go to our social medias, subscribe, follow, and however else you consume your social medias. We'll see you tomorrow when we have another quarterfinal lined up, and then we will preview the last of the quarterfinals. Thank you so much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Have a nice day.